Julian, you taught us so beautifully this morning about that second section of this week's Torah portion, which discusses curses and blessings. But I want you to know, I also see you in the first section of the Torah portion. So I'm going to spend just a little time talking about that and where you find yourself in it. It's actually a really beautiful piece of text that helps bring us on an adventure of time travel. There we are, standing in the Sinai desert, and Moses describes a mitzvah known as the first fruits ritual that will take place in the future after he dies and we enter the promised land. He tells us that after we settle the land and gather our first harvest, every farmer must take their earliest pieces of produce to the temple as a thanksgiving offering to God. This mitzvah, this commandment, confidently affirms our future, looking ahead to us living safe, productive, and fulfilling lives. Since that time, Jews have never stopped looking ahead and planning for a better future. Even after we were exiled from that land, the essence of that mitzvah has remained at our core, taking responsibility to shaping the future for the next generations. And Julian, this is where you come in. By engaging in Judaism with your community and your family, by learning Hebrew, by leading us in prayer and Torah study today, you are planting seeds for our people's future, promising us certainty during these uncertain times. This time travel section of the Torah doesn't stop just yet. After we bring our first fruits to the temple, we zoom way back in time. Before we stood in the Sinai desert, we must bring our offerings and then recite a short summary of our collective history. How we suffered as slaves in Egypt until God heard our cry and liberated us from bondage. How together and with God's help, we ultimately made it to the promised land flowing with milk and honey. This statement of our shared experience is a way of us saying thank you, offering gratitude to God for all that God has done for us. It's also a reminder to ourselves of how far we have come. We must never take for granted what we have, because if we don't continue living the values that God set for us, we may find ourselves losing the blessings we have worked so hard to achieve. There's an irony here in this ritual, because the person who brings their first fruits is a singular person making a collective statement. It's spoken in the third person. We experienced slavery. God saved us. But not every one of the Israelites will perform this ritual and say these words. Only those who own land can do this. Only those who can bring the first fruits of their crops. There were many members of the Israelite community who didn't own land. Orphans and widows, foreigners who lived within the community, Levites whose focus was to serve God and the people. None of them had produce that they could bring to the temple. So there's one more step in this ritual. The mitzvah culminates in a celebratory feast that must include everyone in the community, even and especially those who cannot contribute to it. They are not just receiving from others, they are providing. It is essential that they are there, or the mitzvah is not fulfilled. This is a perfect example of how Torah recognizes inequities and ensures that all members of society are respected, supported, and valued, no matter what their economic or social status. Julian, in becoming a bar mitzvah, you have committed yourself to joining in Judaism's ultimate mission, making the world a better place, a more equitable place, a more just place for Jews and for all humanity. God teaches us foundational values, B'Tselem Elohim, the sacred value of every person. Tzedakah, the right of every person to have their basic needs met. Hachnasat orchim, welcoming the stranger. Kavod habriot, respect for individual dignity, and so many more. Then God says, it is up to you, to us, to use these values in forming a healthy, just, compassionate civilization. As American Jews, we are so fortunate to live in a country that shares many of these foundational values that we are taught in the Torah. In America, we are built on the foundational principles that every person is created as an equal, that everyone shares basic human rights. We respect people's differences and freedoms. We ensure every person's right to justice. Now, it's not easy to enact all of these values, but just like our biblical ancestors, as American Jews, we are always standing poised in our present, envisioning a better future that learns from our past. And just like our biblical ancestors, we are responsible for doing all we can to make that vision a reality. November 5th is coming up. I'm sure most of us are aware. It's going to be a big day in this country. That is a day when we will have the opportunity and responsibility to look ahead into our shared future and take action in shaping it. We will be electing our next president and vice president, the House of Representatives, 34 seats of the Senate, 13 governorships, and many other state and local leaderships. The coming election is all over the news and social media, but most of the focus is on the highest level candidates. It is so vitally important for us to know what is at stake in our own states and communities. Elections, legislation, propositions that don't make the headlines. Until very recently, I wasn't aware that New Yorkers will be voting on a proposed amendment to our state constitution. The full title is New York Equal Protection of Law, known more informally as the ERA or Prop 1. Now, it's easy to let our minds drift and our eyes glaze over right now, or any time that we're thinking of these issues, but we must stay alert. For example, passage of this amendment will have a deeply significant and direct impact on New Yorkers. Currently, the New York State Constitution only provides protection of rights based on race and religion. That leaves a lot of categories unprotected: ethnicity, national origin, age, disability, sexual orientation, gender, gender identity, and expression. Now, all of these rights are currently law in New York State. We're feeling the benefit of everyone having those rights. But depending upon who gets voted into office in the future, these laws can be repealed. Just 2 years ago, a staunchly anti-abortion candidate came close to winning the governorship for the first time in New York history in decades, and had pledged to put people who want to roll back abortion rights in charge of our health system. It could have been disastrous. This is exactly what is happening in states around the country, where women are dying because of abortion bans, insurance restrictions, and miscarriage criminalization. As New Yorkers, we enjoy many rights and freedoms that we cannot take for granted. Without this amendment, some very basic rights are left vulnerable. So on November 5th, we must flip our ballot and vote yes on Prop 1. Vote yes to ensure rights to abortion, birth control, and IVF. Vote yes so gay parents will not lose custody of their children based on their sexual orientation, so gay couples will have the same healthcare benefits as straight couples. Vote yes to ensure that older New Yorkers and those with disabilities always have the access they need to vote. Vote yes to protect older New Yorkers, pregnant New Yorkers, LGBTQ New Yorkers from discrimination when it comes to hiring, promotions, and pay. We want what is better. We have this now. We want what is better. What is at risk is going back to what was. The future is in our hands. Julian, 13 is the age of majority in Judaism, and wow, I wish it was in America too, because then I would encourage you to vote for Prop 1. In the eyes of the United States, you've got a few more years to go, but as you step into your young adulthood, it's not too early for you to consider how you shape your community's future as a Jew, as an American, as a New Yorker, as a member of every one of your communities. It is up to all of us to model this for Julian. Now, surely there are United States citizens in this congregation today, both here physically and virtually, who are not residents of New York State and will not be voting in the New York elections. But I encourage everyone, let's all do our part to research, to learn who and what will be on the ballot that will impact our state and local government. Do not wait till you show up at the voting booth and are faced with a bunch of words that you don't have the time to analyze or research. Do that now. And always remember, there's writing on the back of the ballot, so flip your ballot. The First Fruits ritual and current events make it starkly clear. We cannot afford to take our rights for granted. Take action in ensuring that you create the future you envision for yourself and the generations to follow. That is our responsibility as Americans, as Jews, as human beings who want human, equal rights for all. Amen.